Welcome back to Tarot by the Bay. I'm David. Okay, this is a reading for entertainment purposes only. It's being recorded on August 31st, 2024 at about 6:30 in the evening Pacific time. All right. In the news, Donald Trump is trying to move his New York criminal trial out of state court into the federal courts. If they can do that, his team can successfully do that, they will then ask for the case to be dismissed because it's a violation of presidential immunity. If only all of life were so simple. We must thank again the Supreme Court for giving Donald Trump a giant stack of Monopoly get-out-of-jail-free cards that he's going to gum up the court systems with. Now, this case, a little history here. Back in September of 2023, when Trump and his team tried to get this case moved to federal court, the New York judge at the time, the state judge, not Mershon, it was a different judge, said no. Said, the paying off of hush money to a porn star does not fall under the normal circumference of presidential duties. I mean, not to mention it happened before he was president of the United States, but even if he was, that's not what we would consider to be a presidential function, and it was done instead for personal benefit. Okay? In November of 2023, Trump and his team could have challenged it. They opted not to, and they lost their ability to challenge it. Now they're saying because the Supreme Court ruled in July, they said the New York State Court rushed this case to trial so that they could get a verdict before the Supreme Court reviewed Trump's case on presidential immunity. Again, we're talking state charges versus federal charges. You weren't the president at the time, but okay, bro. And Judge Mershon did not allow for the case to go to federal courts. In this current one, they're saying, well, now that the Supreme Court's ruled, and now we know that the New York courts rushed this thing through there, it should go to the federal courts. Guess who gets to decide that decision? If you said Judge Mershon gets to decide that decision, give yourself a gold star and move to the head of the class. So, if Mershon's ruled against this before, likely he's going to rule against it again. But, when he ruled on it before, presidential immunity wasn't a thing, and now that's on the table. So let's look at the energy around Trump's latest effort to get this case out of the state courts into the federal courts, even though it was a state crime committed by a private citizen who was running for an election and had no presidential immunity associated with it. But okay, this lawsuit that he's putting out there, this court challenge should be for entertainment purposes only, just like this reading. Okay, let's see what the cards show. Maybe we can see some insight as to what's going on. All right, so the reading is, what's the energy around this latest offering? Is it going to be successful? Page of Wands, just trying a new tactic, a new filing to get this court moved, crossed with the Sun card. Truth and honesty. Trump's got, honestly, he's got nothing to lose by doing this. It's not costing him anything but money. And his supporters are just more than willing to give him as much money as he wants for this. What's crossing this new event, this event here? It's the truth. I mean, the fact of the matter is this case has been tried. It's been decided. The timeline happened before he was president. We know exactly which acts were done after Trump was president. And, when Judge Mershon rules on this, he's going to take all of that into account. Underneath all is the Hangman. Is this going to force a different review because of the Supreme Court's ruling? We'll see. In the past, you got the Seven of Cups, integrity or lack thereof. Trump files lawsuits on everything because he's trying to delay the process. current energy is the Five of Coins. You know, he's saying, oh, you rushed forward on this. You're denying me my rights. I've got presidential freedom. We need to take it out of the state courts and move it into the federal courts. You know, and there's a bit of a panic almost with this. There's a bit of a desperation to get this thing over here. The lesson to be learned, Eight of Wands, he should have fought harder. I think what's going to happen here is they're going to come back and say, you should have fought harder back in November of last year if you didn't like the previous judge's ruling on it, because now it's too late to make this change. Despite what the Supreme Court said, Judge Merchan's going to rule on it. He's going to rule. We've got the Sun card in justice here. I highly doubt from this that Judge Merchan is going to move this case to federal court. I mean, there's the possibility with the Wands card that maybe we should do this, but I think really what's going to happen is he's going to make his decision really quickly and rule on this. It's just, no. If the Moon card was there instead of the Sun card, then I'd give it a lot more chance that this thing was going to make it to the federal courts. But I don't think that's going to happen. Let's just ask flat out, though. For Carter, will Judge Merchan keep this case? Will he move it to the federal courts? That's what court system he's going to move it to, but will he move it to the federal courts? Will Merchan move this case to the federal courts? Now that Donald Trump has provided a compelling reason, that presidential immunity for stuff he did when he wasn't president. God. It's not a whole lot. Yeah, again, even Page of Pentacles, Wheel of Fortune. I knew the Devil card was going to show up. Page of Cups. Ace of Pentacles. If you wanted to move it to the federal courts, you got to offer more than what you've offered. You needed to come up with a really compelling reason, and you came up with a real feeble reason. It's just because you want it and the court gave you this doesn't mean you get to get it. The Wheel of Fortune, it's just, this is kind of like your karma. This is what you got coming to you. The case is going to progress. I don't see it going to the federal courts here. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to put in the federal courts. It was a state crime committed, with all this money stuff that happened before you were president of the United States. This is just the timing. The timing of such doesn't justify being sent to the federal courts. It's just not going to happen. I will be stunned if it does go to the federal courts. But even if it went to the federal courts, it won't. But I don't think they would toss it out. He's counting on it. That's what he wants. I don't know if they would because, again, the payments were made prior to the election. The agreements were made, payments were made prior to the election. You can't be the president before you even had an election. You know what I mean? Yeah, did he make some of the payments after he was president? Sure. But he also wasn't planning on, if he got elected and he didn't pay her, he was never going to pay her. And if he didn't get elected, he didn't care. Testimony from Michael Cohen. Believable testimony from Michael Cohen. So the only reason why he paid her was because he was forced to protect his presidency. Or presidential election shot. The crux of the crime happened prior to that. Was Hope Hicks in the White House when she testified about her stuff? There's your moon card right there. Yeah, she was. So, could you... the weight of the evidence is such that you could take out the part, like the checks that he wrote while he was in the Oval Office, or some of the stuff Hope Hicks said. Does it change anything in the case? Not really. That testimony just offers a little bit of color, but it just puts together the timeline of what happened and when it happened. It wasn't the underlying evidence that was there. All it was showing, like when he was in the White House, is that he was making reimbursement payments to Michael Cohen. It was connecting the dots. Hardly presidential actions. It may have happened in the Oval Office, but paying Michael Cohen, $40,000, $50,000, whatever he was paying him a month to make him whole, was hardly a presidential duty. That was Donald Trump signing a check in the Oval Office. All right, energy around Judge Merchan for the upcoming sentencing on September 18th. Are we still on track for this? Okay, we have the 10 of Wands, the burden. There's a lot to do and a lot to consider. Feeling like your arms are tied or you're stuck. 7 of Wands, but trying to fight through it. There's a big push by Trump. He's trying to delay this. Merchan's got a lot of things he needs to review, and a lot of challenges and things like that he needs to undertake. It would be easier to delay things. I don't think Merchan wants to delay things. He's much more willing to fight his way through these challenges than he is to be the victim on this one. 7 of Coins in the past. You reap what you sow. Trump's guilty. He was guilty. He was found guilty in the court of law, found guilty by the jury of his peers. It's time for, the punishment. The Supreme Court delayed things on this, but it's time to progress this case. Current situation as the Queen of Pentacles is valuable for the American public to see this case all the way through and that people are held accountable. Overarching energy is the High Priestess. Divine Feminine Wisdom. Merchan is going to have to, do what's best for the country, do what's best for the judicial system on this. If that means that we delay it, it means we delay it. If that means we proceed, that means we proceed. But he will use wisdom on this one as opposed to a vendetta. The lesson to be learned is the 3 of Coins. Negotiations in the background, things going dark. It's possible that there is a delay in the sentencing. I think there's a possibility it could happen. We'll see what the outcome is, though. I only say that because it's a 3 and it's dark, so that could go with that. But again, Trump was found guilty. It's time to discuss what the sentencing is. This could also be he still gets sentenced on the 18th. It's just not put into action until after the election. Outcome is the Lover's card. Adam and Eve, big contracts, big agreements. It's a big karmic agreement that's coming up with this. This is something that's supposed to happen on Trump's timeline. This is something that's going to happen on Trump's timeline. This is like, this is that big Trumpian moment where, he took a bite out of the apple and he's been telling God for the last 6 decades that he, never did anything wrong ever, and how could you possibly kick him out of the Garden of Eden type of thing. I don't look at the Lover's card as being extremely positive for Trump. But again, it could go either way. With the Divine Wisdom, with the High Priestess, what Merchan decides to do, I think, ends up being the right choice. Again, he could sentence him. He may delay it. If he delays it, I'm going to be bummed out, upset probably, but it's not my choice to make. Will Trump violate his gag order and be sentenced on that instead? There's a question we have not asked before. Will Trump, he's attacked there. I think Jim Jordan subpoenaing records on Merchan's daughter. For fuck's sake. Will, instead of, it could be that we get a delay in the sentencing on the New York criminal trial as they contemplate presidential immunity. But what if Trump loses his mud and starts talking crap about the judge's daughter again, or violates his gag order? The judge could sentence Trump to prison based on the gag order violation and, work his way around that. Let's see what we got there. Gag order violations. Is that going to come back and bite Trump in the butt? Will that land him in prison, basically? Knight of Pentacles. The fines don't work. Have an agreement here. Two of Cups. You agreed not to violate the gag order. You can't be going after family. You can't be going after court personnel. You've got to value the courts. In the past, you got the burden card. 10 times Trump violated his gag order. Current situation, the Five of Wands. He had a bunch of Republicans come in to the court case and protest outside, basically violate the gag order for him. And I think in the chaos leading up to September 18th, Trump is trying to rile people up and get them all worked up because he has anxiety inside of him, and the thing that puts him at ease is if he can grab other people to have anxiety too. Overarching energy is the Four of Swords. There could be... somebody could find themselves in prison for 4 weeks. There could be another 4 violations of the gag order. It could be like 3 weeks in prison with maybe a possibility of a 4th one. You reap what you sow. Outcome is the Page of Wands. Trump may not be smart enough to keep his mouth shut. He might just violate his gag order again, and this could get him a short trip to prison. How long? The Devil card. I think I'm going to put a little speculation out there that Judge Rashawn could go the route of delaying his sentencing on Trump's criminal case. But if Trump violates the gag order, Judge Rashawn will sentence him to some time in prison. It could be weeks. Could be 3 or 4 weeks or something along those lines. And he could do it any way he wants. It could be on weekends. It could be during the work week. However Judge Rashawn wants to do it, he could do it. I would suggest for Donald Trump's sake that he just mind the gag order. He may be able to get a delay on the criminal sentencing, but he really should mind himself about the gag order because it could just be that his big mouth gets him in trouble yet again. His big mouth always causes trouble, but he seldom pays the consequences for it. This time might be the time that he actually pays the consequences for it. We'll see. Thank you very much for watching this video and supporting my channel. I appreciate it. Again, this reading is for entertainment purposes only. It's meant to provide you insight on a question asked using tarot cards. And I hope you did find it insightful, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.